Jimmy, I bought you a salami and pastrami spread. Jimmy, are you in there?
Yeah, I'm in here. He's in here, okay?
Roger, you're in there with Jimmy?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll leave it outside the door.
Listen, Jim. I know it's a difficult situation for all of us. Me coming in here, loving your mother hard, moving in so fast, you're 13 years old. It's confusing. Yeah, sometimes. But listen, I love your mother. You love your mother. That's something we have in common. To build a relationship on, a foundation. Get out of my room.
Hey, everybody. Yes, welcome back to the Paid Search Podcast. My name is Jason Rothman. As always, I'm joined by the great Chris Schaefer. Chris, you're looking awesome today as usual. Got the nice long sleeve, got the nice haircut, I think. How's it going? You look good.
Yeah, Jason, thanks. Glad to be here. Happy recording day. Happy PSP. Happy hashtag remembering AdWords day. This is a day of remembrance, episode 2. And I'm excited to relive a bit of the past. Jason, we've been doing this a while. And one thing, just a behind the scenes point of view is your tardiness is getting chronic and worse and worse. Like I sit and stare at myself in the camera.
Why are you talking about this on the main show? Are you really bringing on Patreon stuff for the main show?
Yeah,
Wow.
I sit and stare at myself in the screen and I wait because I'm on time. I'm usually a couple minutes early and I'm just waiting.
Well, that's your problem. And if you weren't early, it wouldn't feel like so. 3.5 minutes while I'm preparing the setup over here.
You came in like 6 minutes late. Used to be 3 minutes. Then it started to get 5. Now we're at 6. Just keeping you humble. All right. Let you know. All right. Well, I don't get too many digs at Jason, and he does not handle them well. So next year I'll try another one. So we will go ahead and move forward with the show despite Jason's tardiness. And before we kick off with hashtag remembering AdWords, I'm going to tell you guys about Optio, which has remained consistent all these years. I've seen comments on our Facebook group. I've seen tweets. I've seen people talking about it, emailing us, people that I talk to personally, professionally. They love Optio. There's a reason why. You can get things done faster in Optio than what you can do in other ways. If you have multiple clients, load those clients into the Optio software. It will help you make decisions on better keywords, better bids, negative keywords, ad copy, all kinds of things that you have a checklist for, right? You're going through your checklist and it's a daily, weekly checklist to get things done. And this doesn't automate it because you know how we guys feel about purely automated systems. This is a tool to get it done faster. You still use your brain, you still make decisions, but it helps you determine that faster. Check it out at opteo.com/PSP for a 6-week extended trial. Hit them up in the chat and tell them, hey, I'm a listener of the Paid Search Podcast. Can I get an additional 2 weeks added on to the free trial? And they'll say yes, and you will love it. opteo.com/PSP.
Thanks, Chris. And I want to thank Directive Consulting. Directive Consulting is the go-to search engine marketing agency for all things search engine marketing, SEO, PPC, landing pages, content. They do it all. And today I want to tell you about what they've done with Sumo Logic and how you can learn from them. Sumo Logic is a cloud-based log management and security analytics company whose platform gives visibility into log data across various platforms and integrations. One of the obstacles they faced was maximizing brand awareness across sub-industries. Directive's goal was to elevate brand awareness for enterprise and mid-markets, as well as make a brand connection between other applications and integrations and Sumo Logic. Directive needed to build the perception of the brand in order to enhance the bottom of the funnel. something we talk a lot about. This strategy provides the user with brand trust that will reflect their decision towards the end of the buyer's journey. And of course, that's the most important point. Their multi-funnel application-based content strategy helped the website generate 4.3 million impressions over just one quarter, a 38.4% increase. Year over year, keyword rankings in the top 3 spots on the search engine results page increased 175%. In the top 10, increased 113%. The majority of keyword ranking growth was attributed to traffic generating keywords in the top 10 spots. That's where traffic comes from, specifically associated with their content strategy efforts. And if you want to learn exactly how Directive drives this type of results for their clients, you need to check out their digital marketing course called Institute. They teach you step by step, click by click, all the necessary skills required to launch your own successful digital marketing campaign. Sign up today at directiveconsulting.com/institute and you will get 4 lessons free of charge. Once again, that's directiveconsulting.com/institute and get your 4 free lessons from the pros. Links will be in the description. Links will be in the audio player descriptions on the podcast, and we thank Optio and Directive. So, Chris, this show cannot stop growing, but despite the tension between the co-hosts, this show continues to grow, and it's like 3 vehicles drive this show: the 2 co-hosts, and then the show is just taking off on its own. There's so many things coming down the line that we're excited to share with you guys, and one of the reasons we grow so much is because we get 5-star reviews on Apple Podcast. When you leave reviews, they share the show with more people. When people go to their phone, they go to Apple Podcasts and they search marketing. Guess who shows up? The big boy. So this review is 5 stars. It comes from the United States of America, and it comes from Caribbean Girls. You like that, Chris?
I love Caribbean Girls.
Title, awesome show. So grateful for this podcast since paid search is not one of my strongest skills. This podcast has been super valuable to learn the basics and keep me encouraged as I get better. I'm super excited to be able to offer PPC to my clients soon. Well, good luck with that. We hope it goes great. Chris, we hear from a lot of people who work in this industry. A lot of them listen to our after show on Patreon, and we talk a little business on there. And it's fun to hear both from the business owner and in-house advertisers as well as from the professionals. And Chris, the Remembering AdWords series, I think there's not a better way to encapsulate what our show does, because we go over the basics, we go over the standards, go over the things you need to know, but then we manage campaigns all week, and so many different scenarios come up, and we get so much experience, so much context around these basic rules that nothing's simple, nothing's easy. There's so many different variables, and it's fun to talk about it with you. So, Chris, what are we doing this week for the Remembering AdWords series?
Yeah, so last week, what we talked about was keyword research and keywords in general. And today, we're going back to, I believe it was episode 3. Guys, I mean, this was 2016. This is when Jason and I first met. We just started the podcast, just kind of on a whim. We just thought, let's talk about this because nobody talks about the basics about stuff like this. So we're going back and we are #remembering AdWords back when AdWords was AdWords. Google Ads wasn't even a thing. Google Ads wasn't even a brand yet. Now it's all changed for the better, generally. And there's some things that frustrate us just because we're on the inside. And some things bother us, not because it's negative, but because we kind of wish we could.
Because it's changed.
Yeah, it's because it's changed. People just don't like change, us included. So that's what we're talking about. How has it changed? You know, what can you not do now that you could then? Or what are we not doing back then that we are doing now? So for this first clip, it's the one and only Jason with his wonderful bearded voice. And we're going to hear about the biggest mistakes that he saw in looking at his clients' accounts. So here we go.
The biggest mistake I see when I take over a client's existing AdWords account, broad match keywords.
Absolutely.
Yep. Running only broad match keywords. And we'll get into this in a second, but the problem with that is that if you only run broad match keywords and you don't have a very, very, very strong negative keyword game, then you're going to be showing up on a lot of different kinds of searches that you don't necessarily want to show up on and won't produce paying customers or clients for you.
So, first question is, so the biggest thing I want to point out here is this: it was the biggest problem that you saw. Is it still one of the biggest problems that you continue to see with clients, people just using? And to be clear, we talk about broad keywords all the time. Neither one of us are completely anti-broad keywords. The point that Jason was making is only using broad keywords, exclusively, just throwing them out there like candy. Do you still see that?
I still see it a lot. I would not call it my biggest problem that I see. Chris, I think the biggest problem that I run into these days with clients is expectations from Google Ads. That's a whole nother episode. I'm not going to go down a tangent here, but just to let you know what I'm seeing out there in these streets, Chris, a lot of people who think Google Ads is you're going to turn it on and the first afternoon you're going to get crazy traffic like you've never seen before. I don't know what the deal is with that, but this whole thing about 3 months, a long cycle to figure it out, that seems to be talked about less and less. So we can talk about that on another show. So it's not the biggest problem I see anymore, but is it still up there? Yes, 100%. It's still up there. I still see this all the time. What about you? Would you call it the biggest issue you see when you're auditing accounts? And is it still, if it's not the biggest issue, is it still up there? Do you see it all the time? Just pure broad all over the place?
Yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't say that using exclusively broad match is really a problem anymore. I think that most people are aware of different match types, but here's what I see the problem is. It's a whole new problem in 2020 is this. It's that broad keywords, when paired with automated bidding, will basically obscure all other match types that you have when they go unchecked. If you throw maximize clicks or something like, automated system with no cap, no regulations on any of the keywords, and they can just do what they want, fast forward 6 months down the line, and those other match types, phrase, even modified, broad, certainly exact, are going to get nothing. They're going to get almost no volume, and you're going to have 90%, 80% of the spend of broad match. So it's not that people aren't aware of match types. It's just that now if you have one or two of them and they're 2 words long, it's going to dominate the campaign. That's what that's what I find typically to be the most common.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think when we do our Remembering AdWords series for the bidding episodes, whenever we talked about bidding, I think that's going to be really interesting because
that's a whole new world.
Like I talked about it with the competition recently, the bidding is really changing everything. So you and I both still see it a lot. Chris, how do you feel about broad match these days? Let me ask you this. This is a fun question for the show. And feel free to not answer if you don't want to, but I'll answer if you want me to.
Okay, go ahead. This is an honest show. We don't put on fronts on this show. No, I'm fine.
When did you know you were better looking than most people? Sorry. Don't. Sorry.
I almost spit
Sorry.
out my
I thought
water.
I had an honest question. Okay. So Chris, when out of all your campaigns that you're managing, right? They're your strategies. Clients hire both of us to get them results from Google Ads, and for the most part, they don't dictate strategy to us. They tell us, hey, you're the expert. This is what I want. Figure out how to get it through Google Ads. So that said, what % of the accounts you manage have pure broad campaigns running in them right now as we speak here?
Okay, well, the way you said it was implying like pure broad campaigns, 0.
No. Okay, so just a little Rothman PPC insight. At my company, instead of saying broad over and over and wondering, oh, is it this broad? Is it that broad modified or regular broad? We call broad match with no modifiers. We call that pure broad. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by that. So what % of your accounts have regular broad, pure broad keywords running in them? Not exclusively, just running.
Okay, gotcha.
Just to start, yeah.
I would say a third. between a sample. I have quite a few campaigns that are sampling broad keywords in some limited capacity, 50 to 30%, I would say. And here's the thing, reflecting back in #remembering AdWords, what I did before back in 2016, if you would have asked me that question, I would have said, absolutely. What am I, an amateur?
Close to zero.
Yeah, I would have said absolutely not. You're crazy, because that's what amateurs do. Now, and here's what I don't know the answer to. Is it because the broad match system has gotten better, or is it because we've gotten better at realizing that one broad match term is not the same as another broad match? In other words, do we realize that one word shoe is really bad, but broad match black athletic shoe, is way better, and we just don't do shoe anymore?
So, Chris, back in the day, just like you, my number was 0. Wasn't running it at all. Now, today, my number of accounts that running pure broad right now is probably closer to 15 to 20%. But I'll give you this. I should be at 50%. I should be closer to 100 like you, because it means it's experimenting going on. It means it's trying to, even if you have great results, trying to crack that code even further and get even better results. So I think the fact that your ratio is so high and the fact that I want to get my ratio higher, that's a sign of a quality manager. So I think that, number one. Number two, did broad get better? No, I think broad stands out less now compared to everything else. It's not as much of an outlier, because we're going to talk about variance later on and that kind of thing. I think things got they moved in the direction of broad, exact phrase, broad modified. It all kind of moved closer to broad. So broad doesn't seem as crazy anymore. But that said, Chris, we got to remember, we use broad match like a pro. We know how to do it. I will tell you, because I'm running some big broad experiments right now, actually. It is not like the other match types, okay? No. It is not that different than it was back in the day. I mean, maybe they improved it. I don't really know. But I'll tell you, you still show up on a ton of stuff. And why we're using it more, why our feelings change, I think because we learn how to use it. We learn how to treat it right. I always tell clients it's like handling dynamite. It can accomplish a job. It can clear a mountain, whatever you need to do, but it can also blow you up. So you got to know how to handle it with however you set it up, with controlled ad groups, controlled bidding, however you want to do it, control budgets. But it can accomplish a lot, but it can also go wrong. But I am using it way more than I used to. And that whole kick about biggest mistake and it's such a bad thing, I see it having its place sometime, especially for one of my favorite uses for it, keyword research. You can find a lot of new keyword ideas from the search terms that come in. So, Chris, I think that's kind of a good little feeler on what's changed with our thoughts on broad match. I'd say, to summarize, we're both more open to it. It's still a mistake to use it without knowing what you're doing, but we're both more open to it, and there's definitely some good uses for it. So, what's our next keyword match type clip from back in the day?
Yeah. So this next one is comments from me about exact match. Exact match is something I don't use as much as I probably should, because it takes a lot of work to really get the right kind of exact match. Okay. What you have to do with the exact match is, the best exact match is going to be a keyword that has maybe 2 or 3 terms in it. Typically a one-word exact match is not going to be ideal. You lose a lot of the power of these match types if you just have one word. If you just have the phrase match movers, you've now lost the specialty that comes with a phrase match keyword. Now it can match to anything that has the word movers in it. Okay, so I think the main idea that I'm pulling from there is avoiding one word, and I still feel the same way. I totally agree with myself. I agree with that comment, because very rarely do I ever run one word anything, or even one word exact match. Jason, your thoughts?
Am I allowed to disagree on the show, Chris?
I wanted to, if you can absolutely disagree if you have a good reason. You can't just disagree just because I said one thing. Give me a good reason why you don't think that's true.
So what? But when I give you a good reason that everyone in the jury is going to see that I'm right and you're wrong, what are you then going to say?
I'll say basically that's fine because I've done it to you 16 times and you've done it to me once. So I think we're fine.
Okay, Chris, well, that's not really an answer, but I'll go ahead and tell you what I think anyway. If I had to make a choice, yes, I would say you can never use one-word keywords again, ever, or you can use them. Of course, I would say if I only had a choice, it'd be better not to use them in general, of course. But that said, I was thinking about it this week, and also I was thinking about today. I was getting ready for the show. I was getting in the shower, I was thinking of what Jimmy was going to say for the week, doing a lot of show prep. And I listened to the clips you sent over, and I heard you say this thing about the one-word keyword so confidently. And I was like, man, this guy's an idiot. Like, why would he say that so confidently? Like, yes, I agree with you. One-word keywords generally aren't that good, Chris, but you know what we can do? We can control our bids. And so I was thinking about this week. I was like, I'm going to make the claim that for any account, for any industry, any business, there is no such thing as a bad keyword. There's only bad bids. If I'm advertising for a divorce lawyer and someone does a search for meat packing companies in Chicago and I'm a divorce lawyer in Miami, that's not a bad search. It's just a bad bid. Because if you go through all of time, through all of the universe, eventually, and someone will say, oh no, over the first trillion searches, no one ever searching meat packing company in Chicago is going to need a divorce lawyer in Miami. Yeah, maybe not over the first trillion, but I'm talking about infinity and never ending. At some point, someone will happen to do that search from Miami who also is going through a divorce because they cheated on their spouse with one of their employees at their meat packing company based in Miami, and they're expanding into Chicago. That's why they did the search. So, Chris, you get my point here. It's pretty obvious. There's no such thing as a bad keyword. There's just bad bids. Because as long as something converts, and in infinity, everything will convert eventually, there's a right bid for it. Maybe that bid is a 1/1,000,000th microscope of a penny. How do you do that bid? I don't really know. But my point is, Chris, let's take it back from such a horrible search to just a regular one-word keyword that's relevant to the industry. I think I've seen you can make them work with super low bids. Now, if you're running a $2,000 a month budget and you're able to spend your budget on awesome keywords that convert at 10 to 20% or even higher, why are you going to waste your time with the keyword that converts at 0.3% and try to figure out what bid you have to bid on that to get a conversion once every 6 months from it? But I will just say, in defense of keywords, I'm not shut off to the possibility of one-word keywords, and I at least every now and then, if I'm trying to grow a campaign, if the goal is to grow, I'm going to try them out every now and then. What do you have to say to the jury? You know I'm right, theoretically.
No, I don't like your
theoretically.
Right. I'm not swayed at all. I absolutely am in favor of saying when I'm wrong, but I am not.
I've never seen that. So
I'm not swayed at all. I'm not going to be doing. The only time I do one word keywords is if it's something like really specific. If it's like a brand name or a product ID or something like that, that's very specific or a very unique word that's only relevant to one specific thing. But generally, no.
Right. But if you're working for a mover and your search impression share on your great keyword list is 100%, and they say, well, I want to spend more, I want to grow, I want to get more leads, you will be adding Mover's Exact Match to see what the conversion rate is on it. You will.
Yeah, and then I'll pause it in 6 days because it fails, and that'll be it. So I just skip those 6 days. When it turns.
Ask me what % of my accounts run one word keywords.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, Jason, what % of your accounts run?
Probably like less than 5%. So it's not even that big a deal.
You just love to argue. You just want to make a point, even though your point you don't even really believe in it. I love it. All right.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, though.
I do.
Like, theoretically. But Chris, can we just talk about Exact Match for a second? Because we were talking about you at the clip. You were like, "Oh, I should be doing more Exact Match. Exact Match is so awesome." exact match is that friend that you have that you want to be a great guy and they just consistently let you down. Like when I go through my campaigns, I look at exact match keywords and I'm like, oh man, I need to be bidding. Like my absolute top impression share is 60% on this awesome exact match keyword. I need to be bidding more on it. Like I'm not doing my job as the Google Ads manager. I should be bidding more on this exact match keyword. And then I look at the conversion rate and it's like worse than the phrase match or some random broad match modified. And so it's like in my head, exact match keywords still have so much prominence and they're so great. But hey, maybe things have changed with the variants we'll talk about later in the show. Maybe that's why I'm not feeling exact match so much these days. But yeah, my respect for exact match, I still love it. I still put it on a pedestal. But in reality, when I'm looking at some of my data, it doesn't seem to be performing the way I hold it up in my head.
I think this next clip is going to address that concern directly. Okay, let's listen to this next one because it has to do with comments about using exact match.
Yep. And so if we're targeting the exact keyword Oklahoma City movers, what do I have to search in Google? What am I liable to show up on if someone searches if I'm only targeting the exact match word Oklahoma City movers with a bracket on the O and a closing bracket on the S of movers?
Right. It would have to be Oklahoma City movers.
Exactly. Yep. That's exact match. The only thing that you can show up on is literally that keyword. So if you're targeting exact match version of Oklahoma City movers, the only way someone's going to see your ad is if they type in Oklahoma City movers. I believe there's a little bit of wiggle room in there with like misspellings where Google knows what you're trying to spell or plural or something like that. But it really locks it down. The benefit is that you're only going to show up on the keyword that you're targeting. So you're going to have a lot of control and get a lot of benefit from that because you're only showing up on what you want to target.
Yeah. Jason, okay. I mean, you've got to be laughing and smiling during that clip because that is there
About what?
There's nothing more obvious about the difference between what it was 2 years ago and 4 years ago, what it is now. To quote the clip, the only thing you can show up on is literally that keyword. Jason, your thoughts?
My thoughts are, as I said last week, don't talk to me in 2020 because you're gonna give me your home, you're gonna give me your family and your car and your dog, and I'm gonna take everything you have because I'm in persuasion mode this year, Chris. And what I was saying there sounds so good, and the fact that they put close variants into the mix and they didn't give us this option anymore to do exactly spot on. I think it's a bad move because yes, for the bottom line, people will show up on similar searches and more searches and blah, 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 and there'll be more clicks and all that kind of stuff. But Chris, I'm telling you, man, like what I said there sounded so pure and so good and so refreshing compared to every other form of marketing. I was like, if I'm selling to someone right now, dare I say I might still use that because Chris, yes, is it true? No. Okay. Did they add in close variants and you can show up on all kinds of stuff? And you've given examples about landscaping versus mowing and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And you have to watch your search terms a lot and add in a bunch of negatives. And then there's these people out there that talk about, oh, you can add a script to fix everything. Well, I'm not a script guy. Okay. I'm a manual guy and I add negatives to force it to show up on the right thing. But Chris, I'm still going to sell Google Ads that way because that's the spirit of Google Ads. That's a spirit of exact match. And with more negative keywords and extreme focus on search terms, you can still accomplish that basically, but no, it's not actually accurate today. And why don't you tell everybody why?
Yeah, I mean, the reason we're laughing about this and we're just kind of, it's a little upsetting. We're trying to smile through gritting our teeth is because this is absolutely not true anymore. What was said was Jason posing the question, if I have Oklahoma City movers exact match, what am I going to show up on? My answer was Oklahoma City movers with very little variances to that. Now, it could be OKC movers, which is a close variant. It could be, and believe it or not, absolutely, it could be movers Oklahoma City, completely flops it around. It could be movers, And you question me on that, and I can show you proof. I can show you things in the Google Ad system with exact match that will take a multiple word keyword and whittle it down to one word, and you show up for it as a variant. Absolutely not true anymore that exact truly means exact. And I think that's very well said, Jason, that in the spirit of Google Ads, that is what we loved about Google Ads. That's what we loved about how we're different, because we can guarantee, you want this? Got it. Guarantee you can get that traffic. I'm going to bid the heck out of that because I know that that's the traffic you're going to get for that exact. Now, it's true to put a number to it. I mean, it's true to about 70% of the time. Right? So it's exact. So it's 70% exact. So you're going to get some variances on about 30%. And then the other 70% will be pretty much what you're looking for, exactly that search. Would you say that's a close estimate?
I think that's a fine rule of thumb, but I from what I've seen, it just kind of depends on the industry. Like on some industries, it will be spot on, no doubt, just because there's not that many ways to search for that kind of keyword or term or whatever. But for other industries, it seems like it can be pretty loose. I was looking for an example here while you were talking. I got one. I'll give you a perfect example. Exact match roof cleaning. Exact match. Brackets are on both sides. Exact match. And I look at the search terms, 51 clicks, 46 of them have come from roof cleaning. That's the exact term. 5 of them have come from roof cleaner. Now, anybody who's ever worked for home service companies, that ing, I-N-G, has a lot different meaning for people than ER. Carpet cleaning, carpet cleaner.
Yep.
It can just mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And you know what, bro? If I wanted to target roof cleaner, guess what I would do? I would take my fingers, I would clean off the pastrami and the salami from Jimmy and Roger's meeting, and then I would type in roof cleaner exact match instead of roof cleaning. So what's up with that, Chris? I'm getting a little heated.
I agree. I think that while the Google Ad system is good at knowing the difference between that, it's not 100%. There are definitely times.
Well, it's not. I just gave you an example. Like almost 10% or a little over 10% of my traffic is coming from roof cleaner. Yeah. So now if I wanted to, I would have to go in there and add roof cleaner exact match as a negative to that ad group. Chris, one thing I want to do, whether it's an episode here or I do it somewhere else or whatever, I want to come up with a list of things I want Google Ads to have. Oh. Like show me the segment by language, all that kind of stuff. One thing I think we need is, yes, let us do the close variants. It's cool. I think they've done it on almost every match type, maybe every match type now. I'm not really sure. But yeah, if someone has one little typo on their search, I still want to show up on it. That makes sense. But for things like roof cleaning, roof cleaner, it would just be beautiful if we had a super exact match version where maybe you put two brackets around the keyword, and then it really is actually exact
it's
match.
It's sad that we even
cool.
need that. I mean, it's upsetting to even think that there has to be a super exact. So yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to, we're continuing on with match types, and we're going to talk about our favorite type of match type. And here we go. If it comes down to it, if I had a favorite type of keyword match type, it would probably be phrase match. Exact is difficult to find a lot of volume and enough volume to get exactly what you want. It takes a lot of time. Typically, it's a later optimization type of keyword match type, meaning once you get the data and the lower funnel keyword information that you need, which is not something that you know immediately. You're going to need weeks or months of data to really figure out exactly what those are going to be. So that's ideally what you would want, is more exact. But to start off a campaign, phrase match is great. Okay, so Jason, I feel like I probably know the answer to this, but when you're starting a campaign, as young Chris told us a moment ago, do you follow young Chris's example and start campaigns with phrase match as a standard, or do you have a different idea now?
No, I honestly, I still make a mistake. I still punch in my keywords. I still copy and paste them. I throw the brackets up. I throw up the phrases, the quotations. I throw in the broad match modified. I use Excel with the concatenate formula or whatever it's called, and I have a list of keywords, and then what?
No, you do not. You just said Excel. You just...
Old habits die hard, Chris. I use a Google sheet, and what I do is I do the concatenate formula, and you highlight or you punch in all the keywords in a column, and then there's a formula right next to it that throws in brackets around it or throws in quotations around it. So you can get all.
You're quoting Jason from 4 years ago.
No, I do it every now and then, Chris. Like if I have 4 keywords that I'm throwing into an ad group, okay, and I need phrase and exact versions, I just do phrase and exact. I throw in the quotations and brackets. But if I have one ad group where I throw in 400 keywords, that, by the way, that makes a lot of people angry. They don't understand why I'd ever do that. Maybe it's because I'm smarter than you. I've seen some comments. But say I have 400 keywords, Chris, and I need to turn them to exact and phrase. Yes, you can punch them in there, and then you can highlight them all, and then you can say change to whatever. Yes, you can use the editor. But what's easiest for me is I just have a formula sheet saved. I punch in my keywords, I grab my exact versions, I grab my phrase versions, and then I have a tool I use that is on someone's website, and you can get broad match modified versions of all keywords, all words, or whatever words you want. So is it good that I do that when I build campaigns or new ad groups? Probably not. I like your method. I like the phrase match method. Now, you might want to mix in a little bit of broad match modified in there to really juice things up, or you might not. But that is the whole point of phrase match. I agree with the general sentiment. Phrase match is the happy medium. Phrase match will get you some volume, and phrase match will also protect some quality. And it's definitely a good starting place. I would say that's fair to say. Depending on what your goals are, that's fair to say, all things equal.
I think for me, looking back at that, I would say that is still true for some campaigns. It's really difficult for me to say when I would use that and when I don't, because for me, it's more of a...
That's my point. It's a good theory. I never do it.
I can literally tell you that I just built one this week with that exact strategy. They were all phrase, not a single exact and not a single modified broad.
How to work out?
Well, I haven't launched yet. It's still in pending approval mode, but I'll let you know. But that'd be a whole nother conversation about when to do that versus when to do the lazy man build, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. So in the end, I still think this holds up. You know what? Now that I think about it, phrase has probably stayed more consistent than other match types. Wouldn't you say? It stayed more consistent than exact because exact is no longer exact, it's maybe. And modified broad is,
No, Chris, I don't. Search Engine Land article from July 31, 2019. Google sends same match meaning close variants to phrase match, broad match modifiers.
Well, I know that.
So I think you may just be influenced by over the past 2 years, 3 years. It's been better than the exact in terms of sticking to its mission because it just recently got the close variants. But I bet if you actually dig into the data now, it's probably the same. You're probably getting a lot of other stuff and just have to judge it search term view by search term view, basically.
Okay, well, let's go on to the next clip. This next clip is about comments from Google's definition of a broad match.
When you go back to Google's definition, it says broad match keywords can trigger. They can show ads on the searches that, quote, include misspellings, synonyms, related searches, and other relevant variations, unquote. So this is not a knock on Google. Google's AdWords system is not a person. It's an incredible machine computer, but it's not perfect. And when you're on broad match, what Google's machine can think are related searches are something like furnace parts, which are related to someone looking for a furnace replacement or a furnace company, but it's not the kind of keyword you want to spend money on that's going to produce a paying customer. Okay, so Chris, I've got the modern or the current definition of it. I'm looking at their help article right now, and it says broad match, special symbols, none, so meaning no modifiers, pure broad match. Ads may show on searches that contain close variations of the keyword. related searches, and other relevant variations. Wow. The words in the keyword don't have to be present in the user's search. I think that's the most important part of the definition there. That's good to brush up on. That kind of tells you what's going on there. So you got to be aware.
That little change right there, that little subtle change at the end is massive. Yeah, I mean that's such an interesting little time capsule that we have on the Google, because there's no other way to look at those Google help files, because when they update them, the old one's gone. So I mean, I think that encapsulates what has happened in the broad world so much, because it literally says it does not have to include the keyword. So it can be even more dangerous than it was before.
But Chris, what I was saying earlier in terms of using broad match with controlled budgets, controlled bids, however you need to protect yourself, but using it with the intent of keyword research to find keywords that you weren't aware of, that's why it's such a good method for that if you're willing to spend a little money to do it, because the keyword doesn't even have to be in the search you show up on. So you're going to potentially get exposed to a lot of different keyword ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of before. So I would put it this way, Chris, this is a bold statement. How do you like this? If I had to get rid of, and I had to let one go, one of the match types, either exact match or broad match, and I couldn't use one ever again, I'd get rid of exact match. Because with phrase match, you can kind of protect yourself and do the same thing you were doing with exact match. You can add in a bunch of negatives. You can have long phrases if you want those. But I love that broad match exists to always be there as a way to loosen things up, to get volume when you need to get volume for whatever reason, and also to do this additional kind of keyword research helper you get out of it.
Now, assuming that you can still keep exact negative, I think that would work, and I totally agree if you can keep exact negative, because that is critical for controlling a broad match keyword, is being able to stop that from showing up on a specific search. But that's a great, what a great discussion point that would be. If you had to get rid of one keyword, match type, what would it be, and your reasoning behind it? That's
probably be broad match, modified, or exact.
Yeah. Okay, let's go with one more last question. These are comments about using phrase match negative keywords rather than broad. And I particularly wanted this one, Jason, because I want to know, and this question is really still for you, because I want to know, does this still hold up in 2020 for you?
The reason I use phrase instead of broad is because you can ask my girlfriend. I'm a control freak. I'm just kidding. But that is why and I don't know, maybe this is misinformed, but I have a hunch that if I use a broad match negative keyword, the thing that keeps me up at night and that I'm scared of is that I'm going to overdo it. I'm going to over block out the searches.
Jason, so the big question, I want to know, do you still use phrase match negative keywords? Not necessarily when it's two words, but even when it's one word. Is that still what you do?
No, I add exact when I want to add it. I add phrase when I want to add it, and I add pure broad negative keywords when I want to add it.
So you still
I do what I want. And for me to try to teach that to someone or give them an example, like if you're trying to block something, it's not the worst thing to block with broad. I do it all the time. If you're wanting to make it a little more relevant to that exact search, of course, do exact. But I don't have a set rule when I do this, Chris. It's just basically whatever I feel in the moment when I'm going through the search terms report. Now, why would I do phrase versus broad? I don't know. Sometimes the keywords just seem a little close to the things I'm targeting, and I don't want to make a mistake, or I don't want something to change in the future where they change the meaning of a match type on a negative or whatever, and then it changes. Since I don't know and I'm not in control of all that stuff, I just like to be in a little more control. But just yesterday, I was adding a lot of pure, broad, negative keywords. So I would say what's changed is I do that more, but I still do all different match types with negative keywords, just whatever fits the situation.
Okay. Well, that's it. That's all the clips. That is the end of revisiting episode 3 from 2016, hashtag remembering AdWords. And we want to thank Opteo for bringing us this episode, as well as Directive Consulting. Opteo, opteo.com/PSP to get your free 6-week trial and try the tool out like so many of our listeners have. I've heard great stuff about it. I use it. Jason's used it. It's something that we enjoy because it keeps you sane. It keeps you focused on getting things done when, you're just kind of phased out. You don't really know what to do. You're tired of staring at the same screen, the same options. You want to see things new and strategize in a little bit more creative way, more streamlined way. Opteo is what you need. opteo.com/PSP.
Thanks, Chris. And I want to encourage everyone to go to directiveconsulting.com/institute. You heard at the top of the show what they were able to do for Sumo Logic in terms of getting their keyword rankings in the top 3 spots on the search engine results page up year over year, and in the top 10 up year over year. You can learn lessons like that at directiveconsulting.com/institute. Learn digital marketing the right way. There's over 40 actionable video tutorials. It includes an official certification, and you can get complete access for $39. And when you go to directiveconsulting.com/institute right now, you can try 4 lessons for free. So get to directiveconsulting.com/institute and get started on your 4 free lessons. So Chris, we're going to move over to Patreon. I want to encourage all of our listeners, join us on the Patreon show. $2 a month for audio, $4 a month for video. You also get access to a private, exclusive Paid Search Podcast Patreon Facebook group. And you want to talk about just a good place to be, to vent frustrations, to ask people questions, and get some good advice. I love going in there every day. And also at our store, which there might be new things in there soon, Chris, we'll see. We have a discount for Patreon members. So thanks for everyone on Patreon. Thanks for everyone for listening. And the final thing, send in your questions for sure at paidsearchpodcast.com on the contact page. We are going to be doing a lot of Q&A work coming up. So whatever questions you have about Google Ads, send them in and we'll be happy to answer them. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Paid Search Podcast.